Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wa imamil mursalin, Muhammad bin Abdullahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What we just said is to give all the praises to Allah, the God, for all His major blessings and minor blessings, and to request, to pray to Allah to spread His peace on the teacher of a religion, Prophet Muhammad, and his followers. And that's always the way we advise to start our sessions if we are speaking. Since we are speaking here from the perspective of Muslim University of Morogoro, that is the proper way of starting. Having done that, I must say, where did this come from? This presentation started about 60, 70 days ago through LinkedIn, where one of the ladies I met about 20 years ago, an English lady, asked me to write her something to publish in her magazine. And within the day, I said, I'm going to write something on public sector corruption, thinking it was going to be easy. So I did that. It took me 3 weeks. By the end of 3 weeks, I asked myself, why do I need to have a British audience for this topic of ours? Why can't we have a local audience? And then the idea started to crystallize, where we thought the executive seminar development series could be an avenue for us to do this. So I prepared my PowerPoints, and about a month ago, we did a pre-launch seminar in Morogoro to test the feasibility of this idea. And it appeared to be quite good. And then we decided within a month, end of March, we'll be doing this here. So it is not an accident. This is something we thought we needed to do, and we thought about 60 days ago. Things have changed quite a bit. Why did we come to a private hotel? Because then we thought if you went to a public hotel, you could be stopped just before starting. Somebody said, you cannot make a presentation here. What's the possibility? And that is why you see us in New Africa Hotel, because it's a private hotel. The government could not interfere with the operations of this hotel. And I must say thank you very, very much for New Africa for providing this opportunity. We'll do the gratitudes a little bit later, but we are extremely grateful that the hotel has provided us this opportunity. Now, in terms of the topic, you saw it there. These are the seminar series Professor Josie talked about, and that is the topic, public sector corruption, its manifestations. We're not going to talk about the causes of corruption. We're going to talk about manifestation. How do we see corruption? We're going to talk about enablers, things that actually encourage corruption in this country. And then finally, we'll talk about possible cures from my perspective. But before I go anywhere, always I start with this. These are my views only. They do not necessarily relate to the views of Muslim University of Morogoro. They do not relate. I'm saying this because after we did a pre-launch about a month ago, somebody called from Dar es Salaam to one of my officials to say, do you need the university in Morogoro or do you not need the university in Morogoro? That was the environment. If you did this kind of thing, the university could be taken away from you. So I said, no, we have an obligation to speak, and we're going to speak. It's not a problem for us. And that is why we say we're going to do this in Dar es Salaam, and I'm happy that we're going to do it today. Circumstances have changed, of course, but it's nice that we're doing it today. But this is a proper disclaimer for us to say, these views are mine alone, no relationship with Muslim University of Morogoro. Of course, I'm there, and we did a pre-launch there, so there is some association, but these views are mine alone. Now that is, in terms of coverage, what we're going to do. Some limited definitions. We have one slide on the scale of corruption within Africa, We have about 6 slides on manifestations of corruption, mostly within Tanzania, but within African countries as well, enablers of corruption in Tanzania, and we're going to offer possible cures for corruption within the Tanzanian context as well. Usually when I do presentation, I do maximum 12 slides, but this time this is much, much more than 12 slides. You'll have to persevere with me. You hopefully will finish within the time, but I might exceed a little bit, and you have to be patient with me. And this is the starting point, very broad. وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ بَعْدَ إِصْلَاحِهَا وَادْعُوهُ خَوْفًا وَطَمَعًا. This is Arabic, and that is the translation. Do not mischief on earth after it has been set in order, perfect order, but call on him, God, with fear and longing, tama. And this is the verse in the Quran that refers to fasada, ufisadi, corruption. And I thought this is where we needed to start, because it's a very, very broad definition. Basically, when God created all things, they were perfectly created. So when you see a river, it has reeds, it has trees along the root of the river. When you uproot the roots of the river, of the trees, eventually the river will change its course and do damage. That is perfection. If you look after in the environment very well, the environment will look after you. And that is the thinking from the Muslim perspective. If you don't do that, you are doing fasada, and that is corruption. So from our perspective, we take a very broad definition of fasada, of corruption, and that is where we are starting from. Later, I'm going to contrast with the definition literature, and then you see the contrast. In daily lives, you see these examples of corruption. Using water in excess of what you really need. You brush your teeth this morning. If you have a sink, you open the tap and you put some toothpaste and you are brushing your teeth. Usually, you must have used about 3-4 liters of water. Did you need 4 liters of water? You didn't. All you needed was just a cup. Use a cup and you brush your teeth, and the maximum you need is just a cup, maybe half a liter. But every day, we use 3-4 liters to brush our teeth, and that is from the perspective, the definition I gave earlier, that is fasada, that is corruption. So if you define corruption that way, we're going to see a lot of things we accept nowadays actually are not proper things, and they'll fall under corruption. That is an example. Here is another example, serving food that you not actually finish. And I have a photograph here. You see that photograph, huh? I have my 2 girls here and they're laughing because they saw this. What you see there is a plate, eaten plate. But it's not eaten, huh? You see the rib is completely intact. The potato is intact. You see a piece of chicken intact. And a skewer, mshkaki, completely intact. And this person has completed eating. Is this proper eating? No. So technically speaking, this is fasada. It is wasteful eating. You never needed this food, so you should not have taken this food. Usually when you do this, you should take your food, whatever you left, take it home with you and then eat it at home. That is a proper behavior for a Muslim, but for everybody else. If we do it like that, our lives are going to be much, much better because we are not going to be wasteful in our lives. This is something we don't want to talk about, but it is an issue. I remember about 3 months ago, I met a guy, a Pakistani guy, I was working with him, and he asked me this question, why is it normal here for children to be born out of wedlock? And I said, no, it's part of our lives nowadays. It's happening in every family. It does happen in every family. Why? Because we have tolerated corruption. Technically, sex out of wedlock is corruption. It is not the way God meant for that to be done. So this is an example of corruption as well. And I know you have a lot of other examples as well. This is just the beginning to provide us a broad definition of what is accepted and what is not accepted in our daily lives. We'll come back to a few more slides a little bit later. And these are things, as Muslims, we need to be saying. Look at that slide there. It says, if the hour of resurrection is about to be established, the parapet is sounding, and you have a seedling on your hand. The hadith said, plant the seed. Plant the seed. You know the hour is arriving. The hour of judgment is arriving. I'm losing that, huh? Oh, okay, back. What is the problem? Maybe it's here. Okay. So the last hour, plant the seed. Plant. You know, it may not grow. Possibly one may not grow. It is not your business. Just plant the seed. Growth of the seed is not your problem. Just plant the seed. That is how sensitive we should be to environmental concerns. But if each of us was doing this, life in this world would have been quite okay. And here is another example which encourages people to plant trees in terms of fruit trees, trees that can produce seeds that birds can eat, trees that are beneficial. Plant any tree, anybody eats from that tree, you get the benefit. You get the thawab, and inshallah in the future you get your benefit of that. So planting trees is extremely important for us as human beings, and that is the way God meant for us to run in this world. Remember, we are viceroys in this world. That is why you can go and slaughter a cow. Who gave you permission to slaughter a cow? It is God who gave you permission to slaughter a cow, because you have a viceroy. You can use the resources, but you need to look after the resources as well. Removing harmful things on the roads, misumari, whatever you see that is harmful on the road, you remove that, you get your reward as well. So that is extremely important, because it's also part of being good in this world. And then finally, you see these two examples, looking after animals, extremely important as well. These are examples of being good from the Quranic perspective. So feeding more in terms of the broad definition of corruption. And here you see the contrast. Huh? In literature, corruption is defined as dishonest or fraudulent conduct by those in power, typically involving bribery. And that, from my perspective, is a very limited definition of corruption. Because if it does involve bribery, it is not corruption. If I was going to define this, I would say dishonest or fraudulent conduct by anybody, whether they're in power or not in power. That would have been, for me, a much broader definition. But you see the lack of depth in our literature definition. That is why I thought we should start with the broad definition of corruption, which in my view is much more beneficial for us as human beings. I know some of you may not have heard of the Quran. What I'm encouraging you to do is, if you see it in that book a little bit later, go to the surah there and then start to read it. You'll see quite a lot of sense in what we're saying here. I think I'm touching this. HDMI, okay, that's okay, good. I'm not going to go that side. So that is the definition. And now we're going into the scale of corruption within Africa. You see the reference there. Copy that and then you'll go and read. This is the Mbeki report. The Mbeki report came to a conclusion that in Africa we lose a lot of money because of corruption. IFF is illicit fund flows from Africa account for about 65% of our commercial activities. And 30% is criminal activities, and 5% of that is from corruption. In total, they're talking about $50 million every month, $50 million, I think $50 billion every month, not million, $50 billion every month. A lot of money within the African context is lost through corruption.